Hello, everybody. Accureye here, and welcome to the start of the what I'm considering the Noob to Pro slash Noob to Skilled player guide. Now, this is going to be for Apex Legends and built around Apex Legends, and it is basically my guide on being noob to pros or to skilled slash noob to skilled. Um, so we're going to be combining three topics today, talking about them, and helping those of you who are new players and new to Apex Legends, or just getting your bearings on, Apex Legends. So let's go ahead and start with the very first part of this guide, which is movement. Now, this is just going to be basic movement. We're not going to be talking about advanced moves or anything that has to be considered under the advanced move table. This is all going to be about basic movement, your guide for basic movement, and everything about it. Now, the other two parts we will be talking about today are sensitivity and, of course, aiming. And I'm going to be referencing all three of these because I feel that they are the most relevant things that most new players get wrong in the beginning of their playing of Apex Legends, or even just in that case, the overall Apex or FPS title games. So, you also have crouch movement and, of course, jumping and stuff. But, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. So, let's go ahead and say that I'm behind this cover here. And as you can see, when I'm moving behind this cover, I'm going to be strafing a little. Most players kind of make the mistake of dashing forward and then trying to get out into the open where they can see them, or when they can the point where they can kind of ADS off somebody. And that's one of the biggest mistakes as a new player you could make, rather than trying to peek out, because when you're trying to peek out, you make it to where, at least for you as a player, you can get a chance to kind of catch them off guard while they're popping off a trigger happy shot, compared to, like, for instance, if they were, you were standing out in the open trying to gun them down, and, of course, they were ending up being in a open shot for you, or you being an open shot for them. And, So, obviously, strafe movements also can work with left to right and, forward to back. And, of course, when you're in close range, you gotta try to at least get yourself into the point of, maybe meleeing them down while you're in close range. Because, again, you don't want to be, in a strafe movement where, of course, you're going to be doing that stuff. But, yeah, basic strafe movements are stuff like, you'll see, like, many players, they turn right or left when they're moving, rather than trying to walk left and right while doing it, or they'll dash forward and then try to do a slide or something. But those are mostly advanced movements that we'll be talking about later on. For the most part, today, and as far as your exercises go, you want to just work on basic movements, which is jumping, crouching, and then kind of strafing left to right. You don't want to have, like, some fancy move or some advanced movement, because let's face it, the advanced movement archetypes are not always going to be working. You'll find that advanced movement archetypes don't always work. You gotta at least work with the basics to some degree, because, like, for instance, trying to slide forward and then gun someone down may look cool, but obviously it gives you more chance to be exposed to, like, for instance, getting gunned down immediately by somebody. So, yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about, strafe movement, the second part, which, of course, is going into sensitivity. And, that was just me exampling strafe movement one last time. But, yeah, let's go into the second part of the video here, which is sensitivity. Now, you're probably thinking, like, what is sensitivity? Why, and why it's important to know your sensitivity. Well, sensitivity, as you can see, is the building block of your controls. They are the building block of what will make your gameplay better in a degree. Now, as it is, I have advanced look control on, but for this basics of this, I'm going to show you some of the basics on sensitivity and whatnot here. So, obviously, sensitivity is the basic controls to your look and to what can make you aim better or worse. Now, I already have mine set on ACL or advanced look controls, but I'll show you it later on. So, as you can see, on low sensitivity, you're very accurate, but you're also very, very slow to turn around if you get attacked. So, your slow movements when you are in low sensitivity are going to be very, very simple to control fine aim. But, obviously, your turnaround is going to be very, very fast or very, very slow. And as you can see, tracking, it's much easier to track on low sensitivity than it would be to track on high sensitivity. Now, each one of these, like high aim and whatnot, will benefit you to some degree in some way when it comes to aim assist. But obviously, they're not going to help you completely with everything you gotta do. We'll talk about aim assist in another video, but for now, just note that aim assist does help you in some way, but not in the way most people think aim assist helps them. Now, that's low sensitivity, and like in high velocity, as you can see, the movement is a little faster, but on low sensitivity, it doesn't change that much. As long as you're within the target range, your fine-tuning aim, or your fine-tune aim, is going to be the same, basically. Same goes with like linear, on very low, like linear and whatnot. As you'll see, the movement is almost the same. Nothing really changes. Your fine-tuning aim doesn't change that much. It just is a little faster when it comes to like small adjustments. But you don't want your sensitivity so high to the point where you're going to be missing all the time. Now, this is the misconception of sensitivity. Everyone says, "Oh, you should have high sensitivity. You should put high sensitivity on." And no, you don't want to put high sensitivity on, because if you're on high sensitivity, as you see, you'll turn around very, very quickly. But your aim is so far off left field, you may only hit once or twice. And that's the problem with most players. Is that they think high sensitivity is the way to go. No, you really want to just find the balance between the two. Like, you want to try to figure out the balance in between, because as you can see, even with low sensitivity, the lower you are, the more fine-tuned it is. Yet the higher you are, the easier it is to turn around, but less your fine-tune will be. So, as I've said, find your perfect sensitivity if you have to. I will explain the advanced look controls so you can understand what it does to help your aim. But, for now, just note that, determine your sensitivity and determine what works for you. Try to test it all out in the firing range and see what will be best for you. Because as for me, you've seen my sensitivity. These are my perfect sensitivity, and that's what it's always going to be like for me. And, it's not going to change. Now, we're going to be talking about the last thing on today's list, which is, of course, aiming. Now, you're probably thinking, but Accureye, I know how to aim. I don't need to know anything about aiming, right? And no, there's a lot of things that people misconceive about aiming. Aiming is something that people really don't think about. And to a degree, I will say that in some way, aim is something that most players don't really think about at all, because we have it embedded in our brains. Oh, we should ADS all the time, right? And no. As you can see, in far range situations, yes, ADSing is great. ADSing will help you, for the most part. But, at the end of the day, ADSing is not everything for, making the game work and utilizing the game at its best. Like, for instance, as you'll see here, I'll explain the armors and weapons and stuff and how they will help you. I'll explain how the accessories will help you in some degree, but not today. Today, we're not going to be focusing on the accessories or anything. I'm just grabbing the accessories I need for the basic demonstration of this video. But, yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and look into all of these little, look into aiming. And, yeah, with that being said, yeah, let's go ahead and look into aiming, so that you guys can learn how to properly aim, in my opinion. Now, like I said, this is my properly aiming, in my opinion, because many noobs and many players who just think they know all about aiming, they really don't know all about aiming, because, I mean, let's face it, at the end of the day, most of us are going to be focusing on one little aspect of aiming. And if you have your sensitivity down, aiming should be a breeze for you. Remember that your aim and the way you play with, shooting something, you're going to end up with it making, choosing your decisions on, overall. Now, we'll also be talking about single fire and burst fire or switch fires, because there are times where these switch fires can help you over not knowing about these switch fires. So, let's say I'm really far away like I am right here, and I didn't mean to the health drone there. But as you can see, I'm really far away from here, and you're probably thinking, well, Accureye, how do you hit that target? We're just going to hip fire it, right? And I mean, you could. If you know where you're aiming, you know where your target is, you know where the crosshair is, it's going to be easy to hip fire that gun. Because, like, for instance, if you're not knowing where your aim or how the bullet will travel is, then you're going to miss. So that's where ADS comes in handy. So in a far range situation like this, where you may not know exactly where your target is unless you're really skilled and you have a really good eye, ADSing comes in handy, because now, let's say that person I'm looking at is a target that's looting some box that I'm like way over here and I see them. Well, now all of a sudden I can kind of go, okay, I'm going to just ping this guy. I'm literally just going to ping this guy from far distance and knock him down real easy. So, as you can see, that's where ADS comes in handy. Even like with the wingman here, I know I'll miss a few shots, but after a while, you kind of understand the concept here. Is like, even with the wingman here, if you know how the bullet travels and you know how the gun works, then you're going to hit them no problem. Now, will you always hit them in the head? No. I mean, obviously not. If you're using something like the wingman, obviously you're never going to hit them truly in the head unless you have that precision to really knock them from that far distance. But most of the time, most of us do not. So what happens when we get closer? Well, let's say we do get into a mid-range / close range fight. And, I'll show you the burst fire here. I realized I forgot to show you how it works with the burst fire, but the burst fire is not that different. It's kind of the same thing. If you have a switch fire gun, it's kind of the same thing. As long as you know how to control your bullets, especially like with a G7, now that it has the double tap, you'll see that, knocking somebody from a distance is pretty easy. But, obviously, you have to learn how the bullet travels. Now, let's say you are at mid-range. Well, most of us have it ingrained in our thought to ADS somebody. And, honestly, if you can learn to quick fire or quick shot, quick scope, then ADSing from this range is not that big of a deal. But, for the most part, most of us have to learn how to hip fire. Now, what is hip firing? Well, hip firing is basically not ADSing. As you can see, ADSing gives you a clear shot and allows you to basically get a clear shot on somebody. As you can see, if I saw his friends there, I could ping his friends. But let's just say that I'm this guy, for instance, and let's say that over there was where I was. Let's say that I'm one of his friends, and I see him. I see you, or in this case me, shooting them. Well, now all of a sudden, if you're ADSing all the time, now all of a sudden I have a clear shot to sneak up around your blind spot, because here you are ADSing, thinking that, you have a clear shot on them, but you don't even notice their partners coming up behind. So that's why you've got to learn to hip fire at this range. When it comes to this kind of range, where you're basically both in scene distance, you gotta learn to just hip fire and trust that your bullets and where you're aiming is basically going to be right on point. And same goes with like burst fire. As long as you know, or as long as you can trust your bullets to go there and go to where you expect, you're obviously not going to get snuck up on, because it's going to be harder for another one of their teammates to sneak up on you while they're burst firing. Now, if they're ADSing, as you can see, and let's just say that's them trying to shoot at me, then all of a sudden, while they're ADSing, they're basically going to be blind spot, which means that if they are blind spot, one of my teammates could easily sneak up on them. But as for me, I'm going to just keep hip firing them and, trying to control the fight from a distance while strafing behind cover, And I mean, it's just that simple when it comes to ADSing. Now, many of us, like I said, get it wrong by trying to ADS because it's much more accurate. And it means that we're going to hit the shot more likely on the target. But it also blindsides us. And let's face it, 9 out of 10 times, if they're hip firing against us while we're ADSing, they're probably going to win the fight over you ADSing. Because, let's face it, in the end of the day, you are, blinding your vision and you don't see much of what else is happening. So you could see them throwing a bomb. They could throw a bomb and you could react too late, And then, of course, when you get into close range like this, you could fire a few weapons at them or a few shots at them. But for the most part, you probably want to try and melee them and get them into a fight where, they're like panicking with you being so close in their safety bubble that they're just rapidly shooting everywhere. So, it's those things you gotta think about. But for the most part, you gotta learn to try and combine hip firing with, maybe some melee. Because, again, they're going to panic the closer you get to them. And the more they panic, the more shots they will probably miss. Because, again, while you're ADSing like that, you're going to end up with, them kind of shaking and kind of going like, oh, crap, what am I going to do? I'm going to shoot. No, I can't shoot. And if you're trying, and you melee them like I am here, then obviously you have, a much better chance at, at just overall controlling the fight. And in general, controlling, the overall algorithm of their play style. But let's go ahead and try to show you some real life examples so you can get a better idea of what it's like to, play with some real life examples. Alright, so here we are trying to get back into the game, and this is where I'm going to show you some examples and some samples of putting all the motions together. Your sensitivity, your basic movement, and of course your your aim into play. Now, these are not all perfect examples. In fact, some of these examples are just kind of rough showing of what you could do, potentially. And of course, as I've said before, the Ultimate Character Guide is coming. I will be redoing the Ultimate Character Guide, which will be, if you watched my last video, you know already how it's going to be set up. And you should already know how it's going to be, determined. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get right on into it. Now, this first example is not the greatest example because, obviously, it just didn't end very well compared to how I wanted it to go. But, in the end, it is a still decent example of showing you exactly what you could do once you have your movement, your sensitivity, and your aim down. Again, focus on basic movement, basic sensitivity, or basic stuff. Don't try to go all fancy. I know many players will see 3-on-1s, fancy moves and stuff like that. And most of that, of course, is showboating. You don't need to use all those fancy moves and whatnot, because, you could, but technically they're not necessary. And technically you're going to find that overall you're going to have a better, a better use of just your basic overall set, and your basic overall decision making in general. But with that being said, as you can see, I did a toss grenade, a quick toss grenade, and we'll talk about accessories later on, and how to properly use them, later on. But for now, just note that all of these things, all what I'm doing is just simple, sample, stuff that you could do potentially, to make it easier with accessories. For now, as you can see, I'm just trying to find a weapon. And, I mean, obviously, this is one of the scrambles of early game, is being able to find a weapon. You could obviously engage in melee combat, but for the most part, many of us are not pressed or ready to engage in melee, and there's not going to be a lot of times where we can't put enough pressure on the melee game to really make it, something to go against. As you can see here, there I'm properly using aiming because I'm at a pretty decent distance to try and take down that person. And, of course, in the end, it scared them off. And that's exactly what you should do, is try to scare them off if you can. Here again, you'll see me ping them a few times. Properly using aim and ADS in a way. And then it's like right here is where I kind of made my mistake. Here I'm properly using ADS, and then I try to pop him with a punch, but sadly his partner there, kind of popped me before I could give him the last little punch blow. So yeah. Or it was he switched weapons to the, I'm not sure exactly if it was his partner or if he just managed to switch weapons before I could pop him. But, as you can see there, it was not the greatest example, but that was some proper use of using ADS. Okay, so here we are with the last example today on this video. So, yeah, talking about the proper uses of ADS, movement, and, of course, sensitivity and stuff. And, I mean, you're probably thinking, Accureye, can I do this in a day? Absolutely not. At the end of the day, it's going to take you a long time to get used to the game and to properly, get yourself conditioned to play the way I play. Anything takes conditioning. And, of course, takes time. If you have hours to waste a day, you can waste those hours a day to become very skilled in this game. But, obviously, if you're not, then you gotta take time to realize that it's going to be a slow process. Not everyone's going to be immediately ready to do what I could do. Or do what a pro could do. And, I will say that that's probably a misconception of many players, is they think that, if a pro can do this immediately, why can't I do this immediately? Well, I mean, obvious reason. You're probably thinking that the pro player doesn't spend a lot of time in the game or in the practice processing points of view. And truth is, they probably do practice a lot. That's one of the main things about, like the pros and anything like that, is the pros pretty much are practicing all the time. They are doing what they can to, to of course be in that, in that process. And I mean, that's one of the main things. Now, again, this is not a perfect example, but, you could see how, I was properly using ADS to a degree, and all those other, aspects that we talked about. Now, here's where I'm going to analyze this movement, because, they did make some mistakes that I saw. And I'm leaving this in so that you can also understand the mistakes. So here they picked up my banner, which is fine. But here's where they start making mistakes. And this is where I'm going to make my analyze point of view so you can understand yourself and hopefully not make the same mistake as they did. So here we have our teammate. He properly used ADS there. And you could see that he probably used his hip fire there. Or they properly used their hip fire there. But as you can see, now they're looking around for the person that they are doing. And, here's the first mistake. One, they see the enemy. They're trying to walk around. The enemy pops up and they ADS. This is a mistake. Never ADS. This time, the guy got lucky. And as you'll see, the guy got lucky this time. So now he's trying to thirst this guy, which is a stupid move. Never thirst your teammate or your enemy. Then he ADS'd, and as you can see, he got blindsided. Right there, he got blindsided, and that was it. But with that being said, thank you everybody for joining me today on this video. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully this video has helped you become one step closer to being a skilled player. If not, starting to become a skilled player. And, I am live on Twitch at www.twitch.tv/Accureye. I am live on Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday for about 4 to 5 hours. But usually I'm live on Monday and Tuesday for about 2 to 3 hours. Lately I've also been live around that time, or around that amount of time. And, if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Hit the like button, get subscribed, hit the bell notification, because I know you want to know when my next video drops next. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today on this video, and thank you for watching this video. This has been the, beginning of the Noob to Pro / Noob to Skilled Player guide. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully this has helped you become a somewhat better player. And with that being said, until the next one, everybody, this is Accureye signing out and saying thank you everyone for watching me, and until the next one, everybody, farewell.